Okay, in a change of direction and a change of pace for the channel, obviously recently we've been focusing on football club histories, predominantly in England but also in Germany. We're going across the Atlantic to look at Major League Baseball. Now, there are Major League Baseball fans here in the UK, and I do know on the channel we do have viewers from the US who are Major League Baseball fans. Now, Major League Baseball obviously has come out of this lockout, this shutdown of the league, the delayed start to the season, the renegotiation of the CBA agreement, which is a collective bargaining agreement, similar to a work time directive, which you would have with you as the employee and your employer, if you're familiar with that. It was a labour stoppage. And it was the longest lockout and second longest labour stoppage in league history. So it's a bad moment for the league. Obviously, they first came to the UK with their London series in 2019. Obviously, the last 2 years, COVID has prevented them from doing that. They are returning next year. This is why I decided to have a look at the fact that the Major League Baseball lacks a salary cap. It relies on a luxury tax system. And there's only one league that sort of operates a hybrid system that's similar. I'm not using the MLS for this video because they do not earn enough money, although they do have a salary cap system. It's very similar to the NBA's salary cap system with a luxury tax added in there, but they do not earn enough money. The other three major leagues do, and I've listed them in descending order of revenues earned. Now, the NFL is the biggest league in the world for operating revenue. It makes the most money. It makes far more money than the English Premier League. People are confused by that. No, it makes a lot more money than the English Premier League. It makes a lot more money than the NBA and the NHL combined. It's just a license to print money. Roger Goodell is currently the commissioner. Now, the current salary cap structure that we see in place was first introduced back in 1994. So it's been going for 28 years. As an agreement between the players and the league via their union, their CBA, every time the CBA comes up, which is normally every TV negotiation, their salary cap gets increased. Now, what is interesting is for this coming season, their cap is currently set at $208.2 million. I just thought I'd drop that fact in there. It's also very interesting how much higher that salary cap is over the NBA and the NHL. Now, Major League Baseball, I'm going to say this, with the NHL, the other hard cap in the salary capped leagues, brings in a revenue around $5 billion. Around $5 billion. Major League Baseball is double that. So you would assume if they were to bring a salary cap in, it would be double the NHL. Now, they also bring in more revenue than the NBA, technically. Now, the NBA's first salary cap was brought in way back when, in 1984-85 season. That was when it was first implemented, so way back 10 years before the NFL. It was first implemented, and 11 years before the NHL. Now, what is interesting is Gary Bettman is key for the implementation of that salary cap. He came up with the idea a few years earlier. It was ratified by CBA. It was ratified by an agreement between the players and the league. For this season just finished, where the playoffs are continuing, the cap sits at $117 million. For next season, it will go up to $122 million. However, because the NBA operates a soft cap luxury tax system, a team can spend up to $149 million and be slightly over the cap before getting heavily penalised. There are some rules in there to allow them to operate with a bit more flexibility than a hard cap, which is what the NFL and NHL operate under. If you are caught breaking the hard cap, you are heavily punished with fines and suspensions. Now, so they've had the salary cap for the longest. Every CBA, it gets ratified. And notice, these leagues, there's been no major labour unrest for a very, very long time. The NHL is the league with the most recent labour unrest in comparison to the Major League Baseball. They had a lockout in 2012-2013 and a shortened season. And they've avoided any labour unrest for pretty much the last decade. Now, their cap was brought in following the 2004-2005 lockout, where a whole season was lost. Ironically, that lockout actually saved some teams from going out of business. And what is interesting, the players now are paid more than they ever have been for top-end contract. So, in the season that has just finished, with the playoffs are continuing right now, Stanley Cup playoffs, the cap sat at $81.5 million. It goes up by $1 million next year to $82.5. It would have been actually higher had it not been for COVID. So COVID has dampened the rate of pay for all these leagues. They are actually earning a little bit less than what was projected back in 2018-2019 of the cap projection. Obviously, there's been some emergency CBAs, especially in the NHL and NBA, to return to play. New TV deals had to be negotiated, a renegotiation of the CBA, escrow, retained payments. That has been a bit of an issue, but the salary cap is actually about 5 to 6 million lower than what it was predicted to be several years ago. But for next season, it will be sitting at 82.5 million. It is a hard cap. You cannot go over that. Some teams have some cap issues. They'll put a player on long-term injured reserve if they have to. So that's where player trades come in, free agency comes in, and there is a lot of player movement throughout the season. Now, as I've said, the NBA operates on a soft cap luxury tax system, so for next season, teams will be allowed to spend up to $149 million. Another interesting thing is the NBA has far smaller rosters than the NHL and NFL. The NFL just is a license to print money. It makes over $15 billion in revenues, both domestically and overseas, with its overseas rights, far higher than any of the other leagues. Now, Major League Baseball purely operates a luxury tax system, which penalises those lesser teams which can't really afford to spend as much money, and therefore it benefits teams like the Dodgers, like the Yankees, like the Red Sox long term, because they can afford to pay the fines that are implemented. Now, I'm not a financial expert. I just thought I'll drop those figures in there. Major League Baseball brings in the revenues of about $10 billion per year, yet the NHL, which has half the revenue, still pays its players a higher minimum league salary, which is at $750,000. That is the league minimum salary for a player. Major League Baseball, in their new renegotiated CBA, it's around $725,000 league minimum salary. So even though they are making more money than a rival league, their players are actually paid less on league minimum. And I thought that would be an interesting one, because before the renegotiations, the league minimum salary under the last CBA was at $500,000, which is a bit of a head scratcher considering that A, there's 2 less teams in Major League Baseball, and B, they make twice as much money. So that is an interesting subplot. When will Major League Baseball introduce a salary cap? Well, it won't happen for the next 5 years. So that will be 2027 at the earliest, that a negotiation about a salary cap being brought in could be thought of. And I can't see Rob Manfred as commissioner and the owners really voting for it as things currently stand, because they still have the power over the players, because the players were divided, and the Players Association was divided going into accepting the offer that was on the table, given by the league at the time, with like a slightly expanded playoffs, minimum league salary going up, but it's still the lowest out of the big 4 leagues, which is another thing. Their minimum salary is still the lowest out of the big 4. So that is a concern going forward, is that players are still being underpaid in comparison to revenues brought in. The league actually is smaller than the NHL for number of teams, and the NFL. They have more teams, so they're in more locations, making revenue and TV deals. It's more regional. It's more a regional TV deal. So there's issues with the TV deal. There's issues over, will the Blue Jays long term stay in Canada? Will it become a purely US-based league like the NFL, which is a difference between the NFL and the other leagues, is it's purely based in the US. There is no Canadian teams. There's a Canadian league, the CFL, which doesn't even compete on the same level financially as the NFL. The NBA and the NHL also have teams in Canada. So does the MLS, but again, I didn't use the MLS for this discussion over salaries, because their salary cap and luxury tax system is at a lower threshold. But it is interesting that their rival leagues all have higher minimum salaries. The top end talent is getting paid more now than they were pre-salary cap era, in real terms and actual terms as well. But the earliest Major League Baseball will introduce a salary cap will be in 5 years' time, at the earliest. If they are planning to bring one in, and they're doing the research studies on it, it would still have to be ratified at the next CBA if and when the players decide to renegotiate that. If they decide they're happy with the structures that are in place, then it's just, carry on as is, we'll ratify that, no problem. I can see there being a massive issue with the next CBA negotiation, and I can see a possible another lockout. I can't see the players being fully happy with where they're at. There was division within the Players Association when it came to ratifying the CBA. The owners, I think they're quite happy in their position right now. I can't see the owners changing position where they are right now. However, if the smaller market teams continue to lose money or make less revenue, and the other leagues continue to increase their revenue streams and increase their TV viewership, a salary cap may be an option on the table. They're most likely, if they were to bring in a salary cap, bring in like an NBA or MLS style system, a soft cap with a luxury tax system, like a hybrid. But it will be interesting to see what happens. But there we go. Thank you very much for watching. Please place your thoughts in the comment section below if you are a Major League Baseball fan or a fan of the other major leagues in the US. And I'll have some more content for you very, very soon.